The house had been empty for 11 years before the family moved in. That was the first thing the neighbors mentioned, almost casually, the way people mention things they have long since stopped thinking about. 11 years. Long enough for habits to fade, long enough for memory to soften into rumor. The paint had blistered and peeled in long pale strips down the front face of the building. The window glass had gone that particular shade of gray that old glass gets when no one has cleaned it and no light has come through it in a long time. The front door stuck in its frame when they first tried to open it, as if the house had grown used to being sealed and did not particularly want to be opened again. But the rent was low and money was short, and the family of four had run out of better options. So they pried the door open, propped it wide, and got to work. The first weeks were loud and full of purpose. Dust rose in clouds that hung in sunlight like smoke. They hauled out old belongings room by room, boxes filled with papers nobody read, furniture wrapped in yellowing sheets, rugs rolled tight and heavy with stains that no one asked questions about. The house smelled of damp plaster, dry wood, and something older underneath it all, something patient. During the remodel, strange things felt explainable. A cold draft moved through the back hallway in the evenings, brushing necks and stirring loose papers. The walls were cracked. The insulation had rotted away. Air moved freely through unseen paths inside the structure. Old houses breathed. Everyone knew that. By late autumn, the repairs were finished. New plaster sealed every seam. Fresh insulation filled the walls. Windows were reset, doors rehung, gaps erased. The house felt tighter, quieter, almost relieved to be whole again. That was when the cold returned. The younger daughter felt it first, while doing homework on the hallway floor. A slow shift in the air passed over her arms, deliberate and directionless at once. She looked toward the walls, toward the ceiling, searching for movement that never appeared. There was no window nearby, no vent, no crack. She gathered her books and left without mentioning it. Her brother had already experienced the same thing days earlier. The sudden instinct to stop walking, the certainty that something unseen had crossed his path. He dismissed it quickly, telling himself the house was settling. Their mother felt it next. The cold passed through her while she carried laundry, settling somewhere deeper than skin. She stood still, staring at the sealed wall, waiting for an explanation that did not arrive. At dinner that night, she mentioned it carefully. The silence that followed confirmed everything. Each of them had felt it, always in the interior of the house, always in the evening, always the same quiet movement of cold that seemed purposeful rather than accidental, as though traveling between two unseen points. They began to notice patterns, roughly every 2 weeks. Never sooner, never later by much. The hallway behind the kitchen became its favored path, followed by the storage room, and occasionally the dim staircase landing where shadows gathered even during the day. There were no sounds, no smells, no visual signs, only the cold. 4 months later, the father decided to measure it. He borrowed a thermal sensor and set it facing the hallway wall. He watched from the kitchen while the rest of the house slept. At 11:47, the temperature dropped 6 degrees Celsius in under a minute. The change appeared suddenly on the screen, localized and precise. A vertical shape about 1 meter wide, centered at the height of an adult standing still. He walked to the hallway and stared at the wall. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. He saved the data and never discussed the numbers again. Life continued. Work, school, routines. The cold visits never intensified. They never threatened. Over time, the family adjusted to them the way people adjust to small peculiarities. A stair that creaks, a door that closes itself, a sound that belongs to the building rather than the imagination. The youngest daughter began sitting there intentionally. She never admitted why. Curiosity was explanation enough. Twice, The cold passed while she waited. Later, she told her brother it felt like someone walking past, not close enough to touch, not aware of her presence, simply moving through the hallway with quiet certainty, as though following a route long established. Winter passed, then another. The house settled into familiarity, yet the passage never stopped. Occasionally, objects near the hallway would feel faintly cool to the touch afterward. The banister, a picture frame, once even the doorknob leading to the storage room. The temperature returned to normal within minutes, leaving no trace except memory. One evening during the second year, the power went out across the neighborhood. The family lit candles and waited in the living room while rain tapped steadily against the roof. The cold arrived early that night. All four felt it at once. The candles flickered inward, their flames bending toward the hallway as if pulled by a silent current. No wind followed. No sound accompanied it. The air simply shifted, moved, and faded again. For the first time, none of them spoke afterward. Something about sharing the moment made explanation feel unnecessary. By the third year, the events had become part of the house's identity. Guests never noticed anything unusual. Visitors stayed briefly and left unaware. Whatever moved through the hallway belonged only to those who lived there long enough to learn its rhythm. Then their financial situation improved, and they prepared to leave. Packing erased the signs of habitation room by room. Walls grew bare. Floors echoed again. The house slowly returned to emptiness. On their final evening, the mother walked through the hallway carrying the last bag. The cold came one final time. It moved slowly past her, steady and familiar. She stopped, not startled but attentive, as though acknowledging something that had shared space with him without ever intruding. For a moment, the hallway felt occupied in a way she could not describe. Not crowded, not watched, simply shared. Then it was gone. She left the house without looking back. Years later, none of them agreed on what the passage had been. Air currents did not explain it. Structural flaws had been repaired. Measurements existed, though rarely discussed. They did agree on one thing. It had never felt hostile, only present. Some houses hold echoes of movement long after footsteps stop. Some spaces remember paths worn by things that no longer require walls or doors. And sometimes a family lives briefly within a place that is not entirely empty, sharing it unknowingly with something older than ownership or memory. The house remained standing long after they left. New tenants came and went. Paint was refreshed. The yard changed hands several times. No one ever contacted them about anything unusual, but occasionally, in quiet moments, each member of the family remembered the same detail, the certainty that the cold had direction, that it traveled with purpose, that it was neither entering nor leaving, but passing through. A passage, not a presence, and whatever followed that path had continued long before they arrived, and almost certainly continued long after they were gone. Some mysteries frightened because they threaten understanding. Others remain because they do not. And in the sealed interior of a house that had once stood empty for 11 years, something moved on its own schedule, indifferent to witnesses, leaving behind nothing except a shared memory, quiet, persistent, and unresolved, belonging only to those who felt it pass beside them in the evenings, in a place where nothing should have been there, and something always was.